Good afternoon, fourth grade champions. Excited to continue our reading of Out of My Shell, which has become one of my favorite chapter books. So we're going to maybe revisit a little bit on page 154. So we're starting on page 154. We're almost finished with this book, actually. I'm anxious to understand how she'll going to find resolution, how our main character will find resolution to her several dilemmas. Her relationship with her family, specifically her mother, her little sister, her relationship with herself, and the situation with the turtles, the nest there near the beachcomber inn at the beach. So, top of page 154. Mom and Lainey were lulled into it too. That might have been the reason Mom never gave my phone back. She lost track of time. But it's not like I'd asked for it either. My phone was a link to my old life, my friends, my dad. But with everything else, I couldn't keep up the charade with them too. The facade that I was having fun and living a carefree life in Florida was too much work. Summer seemed endless. Day after day, nothing really changed. And then it did. On the Friday, Grandma and Grandpa took Lainey to Disney World. They'd held my sister off for most of the summer, a remarkable feat. I think they were hoping I'd give in and come along too. Are you sure you won't come, Olivia? Grandpa asked. It won't be the same without you. Grandma chimed in. How can you say no to the Magic Kingdom? It wasn't as hard as they thought. The Magic Kingdom didn't seem very magical anymore. I hardly wanted to visit an amusement park with a happily ever after theme. If storybook endings were what made it the happiest place on earth, then clearly it wasn't for our family. My sister just didn't know that yet. Mom bowed out too. She said the rides made her sick, but I think it might have been the thought of all the princesses and their handsome princes vowing eternal love for each other that turned her stomach. My grandparents and Lainey got an early start. It was a 2-hour drive from Anna Maria Island, and they wanted to be there when the gates opened. I was still in bed when I heard them leave. Within 5 minutes of their departure, I was down on the beach. The ocean air had a decidedly fishy smell as I walked along the edge of the surf. Bits of seaweed had washed ashore. I hopped over the strands of green and brown. I was so preoccupied with avoiding the seaweed that it wasn't until I was practically on top of the nest that I noticed something was different. A shallow hole. Tiny tracks leading toward the ocean. My heart simultaneously celebrated and grieved. I hadn't expected it to happen this soon, but the incubation period could vary by as much as 2 weeks. The turtles had emerged from the nest. I had missed it. The whole thing felt, I don't know, somewhat anticlimactic. This had been my sole purpose for most of the summer, and now it was over. At least I'd been diligent in clearing their path the night before. I sighed and smiled wistfully as I examined the little tread marks like miniature tire tracks leading to the ocean. I pictured the burst of hatchlings breaking through the sand. I'd read at the aquarium that the eruption is called a boil. It happened so suddenly, and with dozens of baby turtles rising, it appears the sand is boiling. Then teeny turtle flippers flip-flop over and over, pushing the hatchlings forward just a wee bit with each stroke. I pictured the trek to the water, flippers furiously pounding the sand. What a sight it must have been. I thought of the mama turtle I'd seen my first few nights on the island and hoped she knew her nest had been a success, that her babies were swimming in the ocean. I sighed a second time, then turned to leave. As I swung around toward the beach house, I noticed a few tiny tracks leading the way I'd come. I'd been too lost in thought to notice before, but I must have walked right over them. The blood in my veins turned to ice. Some of the hatchlings had gone the wrong way. They'd gone inland instead of to the ocean. I took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. Even though they'd probably been digging their way out for days, they'd chosen last night to emerge. They might still be alive. This was why I'd make it my mission to check on the nest daily. I couldn't fail them. I bent over to inspect the wayward tracks. They veered away from the beach, zigzagging into the dunes. I tried to follow, but the tracks ended where the seaweed and grasses began. The lost hatchlings could have wandered deeper into the dunes in either direction. They could have wandered to the street even. They could be anywhere, and there were too many places to search on my own. Panic tingled inside me from the top of my head to the tips of my toes. All along, I thought I'd be enough. I thought I should protect the nest and hatchlings without assistance from anyone else. But as much as I hated to admit it, now that the time had come, I needed help. I cursed Mom for taking my phone. I had no idea where she'd stashed it. I sprinted for the house. The sand drank my toes and drew my feet in with every step. I fought against the drag and forced myself to keep running. I threw open the door to the beach house. "Mom!" I screamed. It had been a very long time since I'd called for her. It had been a very long time since I'd spoken more than a few words in her presence. But she was there in a heartbeat. "Olivia, what is it? What's wrong, baby?" With Mr. Shaw's threat to get rid of the eggs no longer hanging over me, I swallowed my resentment and told her everything. Chapter 18. And our little fact here: hatchlings work as a team to break free from the nest. Instinct tells them which way is up, and they burrow together to get through more than 2 feet of hard-packed sand. 2 feet. They're this big, and they're going through 2 feet of hard-packed sand. It's amazing, really. It's one of those nature's wonders. After I finished explaining what I found, I told Mom to call the aquarium. I knew they'd handled turtle rescues before and could give us guidance. Excuse me. I paced back and forth in the kitchen, anxious to get started, when Mom did a lot of nodding and saying "uh-huh" into her cell. When she finally clicked it off, she told me to grab a towel from the closet while she grabbed a bucket and some other tools from the garage. Before we parted, she said the aquarium was sending someone from their sea turtle conservation and research program to assist us, but the hatchlings might need our help before the woman arrived. They'd given us permission to handle the turtles if we carefully followed their instructions. Once I had the towel and Mom had the other items, we met up behind the house. I quickly led Mom to the place where the hatchlings had erupted from the nest. She scooped sand with a hand shovel into the bucket, while I raced to the ocean and returned with a cup full of water. We dampened the sand in the bucket, then headed in the direction of the tracks. We'd been searching the dunes for 5 or 10 minutes when I discovered a tiny hatchling writhing around in the underbrush. His flippers beat the ground like drums. He was hung on the stem of a plant. Mom held the stem back while I carefully lifted the hatchling away from the shrub before gently nestling him in the wet sand. We draped the towel over the top of the bucket and kept searching. By the time the lady from the conservation and research program arrived, we'd rescued 2 more baby turtles. They all seemed on the brink of exhaustion. Their movements were slow and defeated rather than the hard, fast strokes baby turtles usually make. It took me a minute to place the young woman sent to help. She was wearing a sun hat and glasses, but I knew I'd seen her somewhere before. Then it hit me. She was the tour guide from the kayaking expedition I took with Grandpa. "You're," I trailed off, racking my brain for a name. "Sarah," she finished for me. "And you're a budding ecologist, Olivia, right? I remember you and your grandfather. We saw some really cool birds that day." "But you're a kayaking guide and a college student," I said, not even trying to mask my astonishment. Sarah chuckled. "Yep, and I volunteer for the conservation. I'm a busy gal. Now let me see the hatchlings." Sarah moved toward the bucket. She lifted the towel and peered inside. "Oh, poor little guy," she said. "Looks like you were rescued just in time. Let's see if any of your brothers and sisters still need a hand, shall we?" I followed Sarah as she hunted the dunes for more hatchlings. Mom stayed with the bucket, keeping an eye on the ones we'd already found. "So you live here on the island?" Sarah asked. I'd been impressed by her last time we met. Now that I knew she rescued turtles too, I was bursting with admiration, the kind that made me worried I'd make a fool out of myself. "No, visiting my grandparents for the summer," I said, trying to control the waver in my voice. Sarah kept the conversation going as we continued in search. "Just you and your mom?" "And my little sister Lainey," I added quickly. "Ah," Sarah said. Somehow that short little word opened the floodgates. "My parents are getting divorced," spilled out of my mouth before I could think better of it. It was only the second time I'd said it aloud. The first time had been to Aiden. I guess it was good to get the practice. I knew it wouldn't be the last time I'd have to say it. This near stranger, someone who'd never met my dad and wouldn't ask me if I was all right or why my parents had separated, suddenly seemed like the perfect person to have divulged this bit of information to. At the same time, I was mortified. I'd shared something so personal with her. Her life seemed perfect, and mine clearly wasn't. "Mine are divorced too," Sarah said, not missing a beat. She raised her eyes from the dunes and flashed me a knowing smile. "Happened when I was about your age," she said, then went back to scouring the underbrush. It was reassuring to know someone who seemed so on top of everything had once been where I was now. "And?" I asked, hoping I didn't sound too needy or weird. "And it was awful. My parents couldn't stand to be in the same room or even be decent enough to each other when they talked on the phone. They still can't. So I became the intermediary. They tell me to pass along messages. Not all of them are very nice. They make me work out their scheduling conflicts, stuff like that." "Oh," I said, "that does sound awful." "It's different for everyone, but I think it's hard and sad no matter what. It made me grow up fast, you know?" I nodded my head, even though I wasn't sure I did. "In the long run, the whole thing made me a better, stronger person." Sarah paused and then glanced at my mom standing across the beach, with her hand shielding her eyes from the sun. She was watching us, or maybe she was just watching me. "It's good that you and your mom are close." "Well, thanks," I said self-consciously, "I guess." Mom and I weren't close. Lainey and Mom were close, but Sarah hadn't seen the two of them together. "Aha," Sarah said. For a second, I was worried she was calling me out on my lie. Then she lifted a squirming hatchling from the dune. "Got you." We brought the hatchling to the bucket and reunited it with its siblings. After that, Sarah didn't talk any more about her parents, and I didn't talk any more about mine. All right, we're going to stop right there at the bottom of page 162, and that's where we'll begin tomorrow. Thanks so much, fourth graders. I'm really looking forward to reading with you in person, so I hope you'll make that extra effort to be on Zoom the days that I choose to read to Ms. Gorno's learning community and to Ms. Simpson's learning community. See you soon, and thanks so much. Take care. Bye.